We are very excited to be hosting today's event as we learn more about Governor Andrew Cuomo's 2015 Opportunity Agenda. Here at Bronx House, we pride ourselves on enriching and improving the lives of Bronx residents with a wide variety of programs for all ages, cultures, and backgrounds. We do that by bringing people together to increase understanding and achieve a common good, much like Governor Cuomo has done over the past 4 years in state government. So it is with that spirit of progress and cooperation that we are hosting today's event, and I want to thank you, Governor Cuomo, for coming here today to speak about what you have in store for our borough and for our state this year. Now I would like to introduce the best borough president in New York City. I'm not prejudiced. Just look at everything. Just look at everything he's done in this borough in the last few years. Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Howard. I always say, Mr. Governor, that this is God's country, the borough of the Bronx. And we're always happy to see our governor back in God's country. And the reason why I say that, ladies and gentlemen, is not because I want to get a chuckle or a laugh out of anyone. It is because here in the Bronx, God's work is done every single day. And whether you're from the North Bronx, the West Bronx, the central part of the Bronx, there are always individuals who are making sure that we're helping one another. And no place is that more evident than right here in Bronx House. And for that, we want to thank Howard, Martin, and all of the staff right here. Let's give them a strong round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would allow me for 1 second before I get to my remarks to get through some housekeeping here. So obviously, we're so grateful and thankful to have our governor with us here today, and we are looking forward to hear his remarks. I'll say a little something about that in a couple of minutes. But we are so thankful as well that on any given day, we have a wonderful team and such great talent of elected officials that are working together here in our borough. And there are some of them are with us here today. We are joined by the new Assemblywoman, LaToya Joyner. New Assemblyman Michael Blake. We have with us here Assemblyman Luis Sepulveda. We have with us here Councilman Andy King. Assemblyman Marcos Crespo. We have with us here Councilman Jimmy Vaca. We have with us here today someone who always walks around with a cowboy hat, and somewhere outside there's the horse. He is our friend. He is my father, the State Senator, Reverend Ruben Diaz. There are two individuals who are here, and I'll bring them up in a minute, but I just want to say that as Bronxites, this is a great moment, a proud moment for us, especially those of us who have worked so many years, who have persevered, who have seen the dark days of the Bronx behind us, and are finally experiencing the fact that we've turned the corner, and that ultimately what we have all worked towards is coming to fruition. And I say that because in the last couple of years, all of us here, we've been making sure that we lead the city in reduction in crime. We've been working to make sure that we have housing for anyone who is looking for housing, as many people as we can. We have made sure collectively that we are creating jobs and leading the way in economic development. The housing that we're doing, the economic development that we're doing, it's all been built for the most part in a green, sustainable way. And so a couple of weeks ago, we heard our governor. The governor gave the State of the State address. And it was there that he continued to outline a bold vision for how we move forward, a bold vision for different areas and different regions of the state of New York. It was there that He spoke of the upstate region, West New York, the North Country. But one great thing about this governor, and since I've been the borough president, since he's been the governor, is that while many in the past, whether they were Republicans or Democrats, we felt neglected as the borough of the Bronx. With Governor Andrew Cuomo, we have always had a partner. So when we speak of job creation, when we speak of housing, when we speak of opportunity throughout the state of New York, we've always had a partner with Governor Andrew Cuomo here in the Bronx, because that's also applied for us. We want to thank the governor for his great leadership. And so we're here today because the governor also takes the show on the road. We're here today because he not only gives his remarks up in Albany, but he makes sure that every region of the state of New York can hear about his agenda and how he's outlined it specifically for those different areas. And here in the New York City region, the greater New York City region and area, we are proud that the governor has come to outline his 2015 opportunity agenda. This is an agenda that speaks of job creation and job opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just rhetoric. This is not just rhetoric. Since I've become the borough president, we have seen the unemployment rate go down by almost 5 percentage points. And that's because of the partnership that we've had with the governor and the State Department of Labor. That's the partner. Yeah, you can clap for that. When you look at industry here, the food industry, the Hunts Point produce market, the governor has put his money where his mouth is. On unemployment rate, you've seen the Department of Labor stationed right here in the Bronx, working with the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, working with so many of you, especially in the Bronx Chamber of Commerce, putting Bronxites to work. Housing would not happen. We've done housing to the tune of over 16,000 units. All of it built in the last 5 years in a green, sustainable way. It would not have happened without state funding and allocation from the state agency, thanks to Governor Andrew Cuomo. There's a true partnership here. There's a synergy here. And so we are proud that he's here with us today, but it could not happen either without us working together. Today we have with us someone who has made history. The Bronx is so great because of our diversity. The Bronx is so great because we work together. A couple of weeks back, the state of New York was introduced or reintroduced to a young man who has been my friend for so many years, who is now up there in Albany, making sure that not only the Bronx, but everyone is also a part of that table, in that table. Someone who is going to partner with Governor Andrew Cuomo. He is with us here today, and you're going to hear from him a little later on. He's a peacemaker. He's a consensus builder. He knows the issues. He knows the budget. He's smart. He has a big heart. He's the new Speaker of the New York State Assembly, Assemblyman Carl Hasty, or Speaker Carl Hasty. We are so proud of our speaker. We are so proud of our diversity. In fact, the next person I'm about to bring up exemplifies the diversity here in the Bronx. We have seen a growing Albanian population. In fact, yeah. Yesterday was the 7th anniversary of the independence of Kosovo, right? Are there any Albanians here today? He is the first Albanian elected to the New York State Legislature. Ladies and gentlemen, he's the sponsoring assemblyman of this district. He is my friend. He is our partner, Assemblymember Mark Jonai.
Wow. Well, let's give it up for our great borough president, Ruben Diaz, who is taking it in a direction we've never gone before. our great borough president, Ruben Diaz Jr., and my friend. Today's a beautiful day for the borough of the Bronx. The borough of the Bronx is a wonderful place, but today the borough shines even more, in Pelham Parkway and the neighborhoods surrounding Pelham Parkway, Morris Park and Allerton and Belmont shine even brighter. It's a day that this corner in this great borough, within this great state, has some of the finest electeds coming together to outline not only the future for this borough and the state, but the budget for all to understand. I'm proud of all of you. I'm proud and humbled by this wonderful opportunity to represent the 8th Assembly District. But I'm more proud of the people that I stand shoulder to shoulder on a daily basis, whether it be at a city, state, or federal level, to work in your best interest. And our Bronx has never had it better than it does today. With a newly elected speaker, one of our own, Carl Hasty, making it to speaker. It's a remarkable day, not only for our borough, but for the state of New York. And to have him sit aside our great governor, you could only imagine. I've got both bosses in one room, and the pressure that's on me today is remarkable. Without any further ado, some of those colleagues that serve our interest in Albany and fight on a daily basis are names that may be recognized to you or not. But I can't do this by myself, and we can't do it without each other's help. So it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you my colleague, the feisty, ferocious, elegant Assemblywoman Carmen Arroyo, to say a few words. Let's give it up for the Assemblywoman.
Thank you very much. I have to tell you, I am the first Puerto Rican woman ever elected to one state assembly in United States of America. I want to thank the organization for inviting me, the assemblymen, and the people that are here. I'm so proud to be part of the Bronx. And I have to tell you things that nobody speaks about, but it's the work that we do behind doors, the work we do with each other when we see opportunities that help the Bronx. I cannot speak for others, but Carmen Arroyo always speaks by herself because I am an independent person. And the day that we saw the opportunity to select a speaker for the State Assembly, 3 members of the Bronx delegation stand together. And we say, we need a person from the Bronx. And I said, I have a candidate. And when I said the name of the candidate, everybody had the same name. Then we did the work that we are supposed to be doing, talking to each other, speaking to each other. And the name of Carl Hasty was there with dignity, with respect, with honor to all the people that we speak with. I remember gathering 24 votes in one day. That was so easy. You know why? Because Carl Hasty is a decent human being. And I am so proud. I am so happy to see him as my boss in the State Assembly, a voice that was quiet for so many years. Because if I tell you the humiliations that I suffer under the past administration, you won't believe me. But I'm not going to speak about that today because I'm so happy and so proud that I can present to you the newest Speaker of the State Assembly of New York that made history, Carl Hesty.
Good morning, everyone. This has been a wonderful 2 weeks for me, but I have to tell you, I feel like, again, Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. There's no place like home to be here in the Bronx. For me, the opportunity to serve as the Assembly Speaker is one that I look forward to, partnering with Governor Cuomo. He's been great so far in trying to help me transition into this leadership position. And, you know, as a member of the Assembly, I look back at his first term and look at the history of success of things that he's done for the state and even for the Bronx. He was a great governor for the first 4 years, and I look forward to partnering him in the next 4 years. And this year, in his opportunity agenda, he's put in a lot of things that are good for the state of New York, and particularly good for the people of the Bronx. He's included the DREAM Act. He's included student loan relief, and we in the Assembly introduced our own ideas to partner with him on those things. He has an affordable housing agenda. He's really addressed the issues of speaking to people who really can't speak for themselves. He's addressing hunger and unemployment, and particularly here in the Bronx, we want to have the unemployment strike force, which will really attack one of the issues. The borough president and I have always said that we are tired of the Bronx being first in the things that are bad and last in the things that are good, and we look forward to that change. And even for some special attention, and the governor and I joked about this when he put in the funding for the 4 Metro North stations, he was saying that, he did this for me, so he had a little premonition that something was going to happen. But I do thank him for that, because I think the Metro North stations are going to be transformational for what's going to happen in the Bronx. It'll allow people from Co-op City to make it into Lower Manhattan in a matter of minutes. So what we have here in Governor Cuomo for the Bronx and for the rest of the state is a tremendous partner who I know will continue to do good things, not only in this budget, but even into the future. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce the great governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First, thank you very much to the Bronx House for having us here today. It is a great facility, and it's all about community, and today is all about community, so it's a pleasure to be back. I'm a Queens boy originally, but I was 4 years at Fordham University, so I feel like I'm coming back home. Early days, my father ran for mayor, 1977, against Ed Koch. I was going to Fordham. I was the campaign manager for the Bronx in the mayoral race. And you really learn a borough when you do it as the campaign manager. You get to know it inside and out. And I love the Bronx. I always have. I think there's a tremendous potential. I think what the borough president just said, what the speaker just said is exactly right. The Bronx has a potential that hasn't been tapped yet. Many of the other boroughs, frankly, have been developed and been given a lot of assistance, and the Bronx hasn't. And I think for this city to grow, I think the Bronx is the place that is going to happen as the next phase in the next generation. You also, in general, had a state government that was not, let me be kind, it was not fully energized for a lot of years, So you didn't see the state government all that active in the city in general, New York City. They were doing all they could just to keep the ship afloat up in Albany. But you now see a state government that is working, that is highly functional. We've had 4 great years. We went from a dysfunctional government to a highly functional government We're getting stuff done like no state government across the country. And you're going to see a much more active state government now in New York City. And when we go through this plan, you're going to see a partnership between the state and the Bronx that you have not seen in modern political history. I go back a long time in this business, and I have never seen as close a relationship as the Bronx has with the state government, and as close a partnership as you're going to see in this plan. So I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to be with the borough president. He was the co-chair of my campaign. Every time I see him, he just wows me, you know? He's just great at what he does on every level. He is a really special, talented public servant. Borough President Ruben Diaz. To Assemblyman Mark Jonah, I want to thank him for the kind words. I want to thank him for being here. He has brought, you know, New York is about waves of immigrants coming and finding their way and of making this place a better place. And Mark brings a lot of that energy with him, and he does it with an elegance and a class that makes him an asset for the entire body, and I'm proud to call him my colleague. And happy anniversary, 7th anniversary of the independence of Kosovo, so happy anniversary to that. Assemblywoman Carmen Arroyo, she brings the fire, doesn't she? Oh, and she gets up, she brings the passion, and she brings the energy. And when she is on your side, she is on your side. When she is not on your side, she is not on your side. But you could not have a more tenacious advocate. And she's been a great friend of mine for a long, long time. She is literally going to be in the history books, as she said. First Puerto Rican elected to the New York State Assembly. God bless her. Carmen Arroyo. And to the new speaker right out of the box, Speaker Carl Heastie. Now, you know how great he is as an elected official. Because Assemblyman Heastie has been here and you've seen him function. He is now going to become a statewide official. And that's going to be one of the transitions that he's going through. You're going to have to share him now. It's not just the Bronx's Carl Heastie. Now it's the speaker, so he's a statewide official. So this summer, he's going to take Senator Diaz's hat, put it on, and we're going to send him upstate New York. You're going to see him river rafting in the Adirondack. Right. You're going to see him out at Montauk Point shark fishing, reeling in the big one. You'll see him up in the Finger Lakes sipping white wine with white pants on. And you'll say, what happened to Carl Heastie? Wasn't he from the Bronx at one time? But he has done a magnificent job. And as the Assemblywoman Arroyo said, this was sudden that the Assembly needed a new speaker. And sometimes a sudden jolt, there's a clear recognition of the direction to go forward. And that's exactly what happened here. And Carl was the clear path forward. He had impressed everyone. And the more they get to know him, the more he's going to impress them. My pleasure. And to all my other colleagues, Michael Blake, Marcus Crespo, Louis Sepulveda, Andy King, Jimmy Vaca, I want to thank them all very much for being here. Let me run through relatively quickly and Senator Ruben Diaz Sr. I love these father and son political teams, by the way. I always wondered how it would be to have a father and a son in the same business like that. But Senator Diaz talk about a strong advocate and a strong fighter for what he believes in. We don't always agree on everything, I think it's fair to say. But I always respect his beliefs, and I always respect his commitment to his beliefs. Senator Diaz, pleasure to be with you. I'm going to run through the plan for, as you heard, the state of the state. What happens in the beginning of the year, the governor gives an outline plan for the state, presents it to the legislature. It's called the State of the State Address. This one also has tailored strategies for particular communities upstate in need, particular communities downstate in need, and the Bronx is one of them. So we'll be highlighting proposals that are mainly relevant for the Bronx specifically, which, as I said before, really the first time you've seen the state in partnership with the borough the way we have a partnership here. So let me go through that now, because really you understanding this and getting you involved is more important than anything. I think it's fair to say that over the past 4 years, the state has made progress and the direction is forward. When you look at almost any numerical index, you see how far we've come. Unemployment was about 9%. It's now down to 5.8%. When Borough President Diaz said unemployment has dropped about 5 points in the Bronx, to me, that is everything. That means people are working. That means you're changing the whole trajectory. We had the lowest credit ratings the state had. We now have the highest credit ratings in 40 years. Upstate New York was in free fall decline. Now upstate New York is doing better. Taxes were going up, and up. And now we have taxes and spending under control. Property taxes were going up at 6% a year. And we proposed a property tax cap that froze them. Everyone will say that it was a period of historic progress. We're trying to make New York what it was. It was a state of opportunity. New generations came, they found jobs, they started businesses, they got strong, and they moved on. And we want to build on that success over the past 4 years. And that's what we call our opportunity agenda that we're going to be stressing this year. Economics, education, fairness for all, and ethics reform. In terms of economic opportunity, as I said before, the engine that pulls the train is business. If we are bringing businesses to New York, everything else we can handle. If people have careers, people have opportunities, people have salaries, if there's a tax base, if they are real jobs, then that's the first most important thing to do. We have created over 500,000 jobs in the last 4 years. So jobs are coming back to New York. We need to keep it going, and we need to do more. One of the ways we've been getting businesses to come back and getting businesses to start here is by changing the impression of New York as the high tax capital and the most expensive place to live. And we have been bringing down income taxes. On the middle class, we have the lowest tax rate since 1953 for the middle class. 1953, that's a long time ago. That's before I was born. That's how long ago that was. So these are dramatic steps forward. Corporate income tax is down to its lowest level since 1968. Manufacturing tax down to its lowest level since 1917. Why? If we can get those manufacturing jobs, the jobs that are left in this country, that's exactly what we need for the workforce that we have. This year, we want to propose a tax cut for small businesses. Why? Because small businesses are where the economic activity is now. That's where the jobs are being created. No business comes in and starts 500 jobs anymore. It's 5 jobs, it's 10 jobs, it's a small bodega, it's a small printing shop. And the taxes on those small businesses that are just starting suffocate them in the crib. Small business owners say, I couldn't make it. There were too many regulations and too much in taxes. We want to take the taxes on small business and cut them dramatically. Right now, it's 6.5%. We want to go from 6.5% to 2.5% on small business, which would be the lowest tax rate on small business in over 100 years in the state of New York. We have a program that's been working great. We do this in combination with colleges and SUNY colleges. It's called Startup New York. They are tax-free zones for new businesses. What's happening in this state is we're creating new businesses because the new businesses nowadays are coming out of the colleges. New patents, new copyrights, new ideas. We start the new businesses because we have the greatest schools in the country. But we lose the majority of those new businesses in the first 2 years. They move somewhere else to develop. Why? Because our taxes are too high. The startup zone says you don't have to move anywhere. You stay in this geographic zone near the college, it's totally tax-free for 10 years. And that makes a tremendous difference. A growing economy is about infrastructure. Infrastructure is roads and bridges, but now it's more. It's about broadband, and it's about having access to high-speed broadband. Right now, we have 500,000 homes and 4,000 businesses that don't have access to high-speed internet. They are poorer communities, and they're rural communities. The orange are places that don't have high-speed broadband. And it's almost the whole state, as you can see. Poorer communities and richer communities. We're going to joint venture with the private sector companies. We're going to have a $1 billion joint venture, but we'll have statewide high-speed coverage by 2018, first state in the United States to do that. You want to talk about business development? The gateway to business, to tourism, which is a very big business in New York, are the airports. And frankly, the airports are terrible. And this is not what we deserve as New Yorkers. Vice President Biden, in a very candid moment, which he enjoys, flew into LaGuardia and said, you fly into LaGuardia and you think you're flying into a third world country. Now, that was a slight overstatement, slightly insensitive, slightly insulting, but basically true. So LaGuardia and JFK, which have been under perpetual construction and renovation, and it just never happens, we're going to take over the construction and we're going to build New York the airports that we deserve. We're also going to connect a train ride to LaGuardia, so you can take a train. You don't have to drive to LaGuardia Airport, which is long overdue. In the Bronx, what I believe is going to be a transformational project, where years from now, after the Bronx has developed in a way it hasn't done in the past 50 years, they're going to say what caused it. It's going to be putting in 4 new subway stops in the Bronx. It is a $1 billion investment, so that's a lot of money. I just want to underscore a $1 billion investment. 1 billion, 1 billion, 1 billion, 1 billion, 1 billion. So I'm sure your entire Bronx delegation is very happy and appreciative and grateful for the political support. Yeah. Yeah, the Bronx billion. Yeah. They're not an easy group, your delegation, I'll tell you. It takes $1 billion to get them to stand up. I'll tell you the truth. They do not come cheap, this group. But this is going to be a transformative project, and I am pleased and proud to defend it, because as I said before, the Bronx is the next place where the potential has not been fully developed. And I think that's where you're going to see New York City grow, that's where you're going to see New York State grow, and this is going to be the way to jumpstart it. When we talk about economic recovery, it's very important to us that we're not just talking about the economics of the few and of the rich, but that everybody is doing well. We have a Bronx unemployment strike force, because the Bronx is one of the highest unemployment rates in the state, that has been working on just targeting jobs for people in the Bronx. This strike force, which the borough president has been talking about and leading, 7,000 jobs. Bronx is under double-digit unemployment for the first time since 2008. We want to take that model and we want to expand that model. It's working. We propose $10 million to continue that strike force to get more New Yorkers jobs, because if they have jobs, they're supporting their family, they're not in need of government assistance. That's what it's all about. And I'm proud to make this investment in the Bronx also. In 2012, we passed a law to raise the minimum wage. We went from $7.25 to $9 by 2016. It helped, but I think we should raise it even higher because it's not enough. We want to raise it to $10.50. $10.50 would be the highest statewide minimum wage in the country. New York would have the highest. But I'm proud of that also, and I think New York should lead the way. In New York City, which is more expensive than the rest of the state, for the first time ever, we would propose an independent rate for New York City, which is actually higher, $11.50 in New York City. We still, believe it or not, have New Yorkers who can't afford enough to eat. We want to make sure our pantries and food stocks are supplied, because it is unconscionable that any New Yorker today should go hungry, and that's not going to happen in the state of New York. And we need another $4.5 million to make sure our emergency food services are stocked. We have an affordable housing crisis, as you know better than most. Again, this is one of the areas where the state has not been overly aggressive in the past. We want to step up. We did $1 billion last year. We want to do just under $500 million this year for more affordable housing for those people in need, which is primarily in New York City, because again, this is another investment that is long overdue. And for the chronic problem that we have had, which is unemployment among minority youth. African American youth, Latino youth who can't find a job. We started a program 2 years ago where we will subsidize the employment and training if a private sector company hires a young minority. The state subsidizes it. We call them job vouchers. We created 20,000 jobs for people between 16 to 24. We now want to double that, 40,000 jobs with job vouchers by doubling that program. If you ask me, the single most effective way to help low-income people and help minorities break into economic success, I would say it's the Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program, MWBE. You've heard about it, but it is magic what it does. It takes a percentage of the state contracts and sets them aside for minority businesses or women-owned businesses. And they compete in those projects. These are engineering contracts, accounting contracts, sales contracts, construction contracts, but it's a set-aside. In 2010, when we started 4 years ago, the set-aside was 10%, which is $800 million in state contracts. And we successfully did that. We then raised it to 20%, which is $1.6 billion in contracts dedicated. Now remember, these are firms that get these contracts and then grow and then hire and train more young minorities, creating a whole infrastructure. We then went to 25%, which is $2 billion, and this year we propose the highest rate in the nation, 30%, which is $2.4 billion in minority and women-owned contracts. The best way to rebuild the community is from within. Not-for-profit and faith-based community organizations can be a tremendous source of growth. We haven't tapped them. We haven't given them the resources that they need. We're proposing a new office be set up called the Office of Faith-Based Community Development Service. Assemblyman Karim Kamara, who's also a reverend, is leaving the state assembly to join the state to run this program. And we want to set up a $50 million fund to fund community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, to do community development from the ground up. In terms of education, this is probably the toughest area. We've talked about education reform for decades, and everybody gives the same speech and nothing happens, right? The bureaucracy wins. We have a simple goal. We want the best teachers in our schools. We want to close failing schools, and we want to invest in early education. To recruit the best teachers, we have the first ever state scholarship, which is very simple. We want to get the best and the brightest to be teachers. We will pay the full college cost of top graduates for people who agree to be a public school teacher for 5 years. You give us 5 years as a school teacher, we'll pay your college. Period. You want to incentivize people to go into teaching? You want to get the best and the brightest? You believe we need the best and the brightest? First ever 100% scholarship. It's that simple. For existing teachers who are high-performing teachers, we propose a bonus that would give high-performing teachers a bonus, and teachers who are struggling, we would get them the help they need. How do you do this? We need a teacher evaluation system that is fair and accurate. Every state is now moving towards a teacher evaluation system. It's the #1 reform in the country. Difficult to do because the teachers have never had an evaluation system before. And this is the first ever evaluation system. So it is difficult and it is jarring and the transition is hard. But once you have that evaluation system, then you can start to treat different people and get them the help they need. The current evaluation system we have is not accurate. Why? In high school, 38% of our high school students are college ready. The evaluation system that now exists rated 98% of the teachers effective. How can 98% of the teachers be effective if only 38% of the students are effective, right? It cannot be. It cannot be. I mean, you would have to be saying that there's something wrong with the New York student population where despite having great teachers, there's nothing you can do to help the New York student. I reject that premise. I think the grades are overinflated on the teacher evaluation. 3rd to 8th graders, 30% are proficient in English, 99% of their teachers are rated effective. Can't be. Can't be. 35% of the 3rd to 8th graders proficient in math, 98% of the teachers are doing a great job. It cannot be. It just cannot be. The evaluation system was designed by the local school districts and the local unions, and it has been too favorable to the teachers. I want to have a fair evaluation system that actually fairly judges the teachers and fairly judges the student population. Now, once we have a fair evaluation system, then you can incentivize performance, which I want to do. Those teachers who do well, and you want a teacher to work hard, and you want a teacher to spend time, if they are the high performers on an evaluation system, the state will give each teacher a $20,000 bonus on top of their salary. On top of their salary. Fully funded by the state. So you want to incentivize them to work hard and do well? $20,000 bonus, first time ever. For those teachers who are in the middle category and they need help, the state will fund unprecedented support services, counseling services, teacher improvement services, etc., so they can raise their improvement. But for the teachers who chronically fail, which means 2 or 3 years of chronic failure on the new evaluation system, then I would want to ask them to leave the classroom. Because now, the teachers union says, oh, the governor is the enemy of teachers, and the governor doesn't like teachers. How can that be? Right now, it is virtually impossible to fire a teacher. The school districts will tell you they don't even try anymore. That's why you read the stories in the newspaper about they put the teacher in what they call a rubber room. They just try to put them somewhere, but they have to continue to pay them. The system is lopsided. The system of education was not about hiring teachers and protecting teachers who can't teach. That was not the point of the system. The point of the system was to educate students. That was the point. It was about helping young people. Now the teachers union says, I don't like teachers, I don't respect teachers. I love teachers. I respect teachers. My mother taught 2nd and 4th grade in a public school. My mother is a public school teacher. My mother now does mentoring. I have total respect for teachers. And I don't believe there is any teacher who would say, if you have a failing teacher for 3 years, you should leave that teacher in the classroom. If you respect the profession of teaching, you would never ask to protect that failing teacher. That is repugnant to the profession in the first place. Because, as I said before, the purpose of the education system was not to protect bad teachers. It was to educate students. And I understand the teachers union is very powerful politically. Don't kid yourself. One of the largest political donors in the state of New York is what? The teachers union. Teachers union, on both sides of the aisle. So I understand they're powerful politically. But I also understand they don't come before the interest of the students. And this is going to change, and it's going to change now. Same is true on failing public schools. It's a big issue for Senator Diaz. He's right. You have failing public schools are schools where less than half of the student population graduates when the state average is 76%. Who's in the failing schools? 9 out of 10 times, they're poor students or they're minority students. Poor students or minority students 9 out of 10 times. And you know what? If they weren't poor students and they weren't minority students, I'll bet you these failing schools would not have been allowed to exist as long as they've been allowed to exist. There are 178 failing schools in New York State, 44 in the Bronx. 77 have been failing for an entire decade. 20 in the Bronx have been failing for a decade. Think about that. Meaning, we knew the school was failing, and every year we just sent another class to the failing school. What did you think was going to happen? They were going to fail like the school before them was going to fail. And we sent class after class for 10 years. You want to talk about a failure of government. You want to talk about a scandal in government. To me, that's the scandal. It's a total abrogation of the responsibility of government. A school is failing for 10 years. Do something different. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. If the school is failing, it's going to fail again unless you do something different. Over the last 10 years, 250,000 children were sent to failing schools. 67,000 children in the Bronx sent to failing schools. 67,000. What do you say to them? What do you say to their parents? And that's why parents are so desperate for an alternative. Because they've seen what happens when kids go to that school. And they don't want their kid to be condemned by a failing elementary school, because they know if they're condemned in a failing elementary school, they will never catch up. They go to a bad elementary school, they're not going to get into a good high school, they're not going to get into a college, and it's a totally different life trajectory. Now, because of the zip code of where I live, because of my neighborhood, because I have a government that's not making a change, I'm going to send my child to a school where I know their future will be tainted. And they're saying we've had enough and we're not going to do it and we want an alternative. And that's what's fueling the charter school movement, because they're saying, give me some hope. And give me some place to send my kid where I can believe there's a sense of possibility. It has to end. What we want to say is, when a school fails for 3 years, a not-for-profit, another school district, or a turnaround expert must take over the school. Meaning, do something different. Do something different. I know the union is upset. They don't want anything to change. But the alternative is to continue sending these kids to bad schools, and it has to stop. They did this in the state of Massachusetts. The same model we're talking about here with failing schools, same basic demographic areas, because these are children with higher needs in poorer communities. The same model was done in Massachusetts. Graduation rates increased from 52 to 67. Math proficiency 28 to 41. Dropout rate decreased by 50%. The union, national union, supported the model in Massachusetts because they said enough was enough. And if Randy Weingarten could support it in Massachusetts, Randy Weingarten should support it in New York also. We want to invest in early education. We want to finish funding universal pre-K for 4-year-olds. And we want to start universal pre-K for 3-year-olds. Because the younger we get the kids into the classroom, the better. We'd be the first state in the nation to have universal pre-K for 3-year-olds. We want to pass the education tax credit. We want to pass the DREAM Act to make sure that everybody has educational opportunity. We want to renew mayoral control in New York City. We're saying this is a bold reform plan. I said to the legislature, if you pass this reform plan, the budget's supposed to go up 1.7%. That was the agreement for education. I'll support a 4.8% increase, which would be an additional $1 billion, which would take it to the highest level of funding ever. In terms of fairness for all, we have a social justice agenda that says raise the age, restore confidence, and a statewide sexual assault policy and more assistance for the homeless. New York is one of only 2 states in the United States that tries a 16-year-old as an adult. New York and North Carolina, only 2 states where at 16 you're treated as an adult, which means you're convicted at 16, you go to a state prison. A 16-year-old walks into a state prison. This is a very, very difficult situation. And the chances that that 16-year-old are going to be improved by that circumstance are virtually nil, in my opinion. We want to change the law to say 16 and 17-year-olds are not treated as adults. They're not sent to adult prisons. They're sent to facilities for people of their age and their peers, but not to state prisons. We have a crisis when it comes to criminal justice in this city and in this state. and it's painful to talk about, but what we went through with the Eric Garner case, which was the gentleman in Staten Island who lost his life, and it was videoed and everyone saw it over and over, and it was a case that suggested lack of confidence in the criminal justice system. That's New York, but it's also Ferguson, it's also Los Angeles, it's also Florida. There's a lack of confidence in the criminal justice system. And it's a problem in reality and a problem in perception. You need trust and respect between the community and the police, and it has to go both ways. It doesn't right now. I want to do a reform agenda after the Eric Garner case, because I don't want it to just go away without us making changes, because we should make changes. We proposed a statewide reconciliation commission, so there's actually better communication between police and community. We should have more minorities in law enforcement, so the force looks more like the community. We should have race and ethnic data on police actions statewide, so we know who's getting stopped. We want more protection for the police in terms of vests and body cameras, etc. And we want to give the district attorneys the right to issue a grand jury report or a letter of fact explaining what happened in the grand jury. And I want the right to appoint an independent monitor to review the cases if I believe justice may not have been served. So we have an alternative to a situation like Eric Garner, where I can appoint an independent monitor who reviews it. And if the independent monitor thinks one is necessary, we appoint a special prosecutor to come in and reopen the case and actually do justice. I think that will actually say we learned from the Eric Garner case. This proposal is supported by the DAs. It's also supported by community activists, the NAACP, Harry Belafonte, Jay-Z, Russell Simmons, New York Civil Liberties Union. So it has support all across the board. One issue left in this agenda: there is a national crisis of sexual assault in college campuses against young women. New York now has more schools being investigated than any state in the nation for sexual assault on campuses. We don't talk about it much because we're ashamed of it, but we should. We put a policy in place last year in the SUNY schools that had two components. Both parties must affirmatively consent to sexual relations. It's called affirmative consent. And number two, if a woman believes she was a victim of a rape and she goes to the campus, she has to be informed that she has the right to go to the police. What happens now is the woman goes to the campus wants to handle it as an internal matter because they don't want the publicity. So they have a panel of professors deal with it. And very often it just gets swept under the rug. He said, she said. This is not an academic matter. If a person was raped, it was a criminal matter. And if you don't punish the crime, the person is going to do it again. And that is exactly what is happening. A relatively small number of people are creating these rapes over and over and over again. The recidivism rate is through the roof. Why? Because they're getting away with it. And that is the point of the punishment in the first place. If a person gets caught, convicted, and is incarcerated for rape the first time, there's less likelihood he'll do it the second time. We want the woman informed that she has the right to go to local police, town police, or state police because it's a criminal matter. And if she wants to only deal with the campus security, fine. But she has a right to go to the police. Don't treat her like she did anything wrong. She was the victim, and she has a right to express her rights as a victim and contact the police. That's in place on the state schools. We want a law that makes it apply to all colleges across the state. If this state passes that law, I think that law will go right across this country like fire through dry grass, because it should. And we can protect thousands and thousands of women. I started in my 20s working on the homeless problem. I built homeless facilities here in the Bronx under an entity called Help USA. In my 20s, this was a temporary problem, homelessness. We were going to solve it in a year, 2 years, but it was a short-term problem. And here we are, 30 years later, more homeless today than ever before. It's a disgrace. The state wants to put its full might behind it. We want a 20% increase in funding to stop homelessness to $400 million. And the last point is an ethics reform agenda. I'm very proud of everything we've done and everything we've passed, and I'm proud of the legislature, I'm proud of the Assembly, I'm proud of the Senate, because they really have done a great job in working together and compromising and producing for the people of the state. But there's been a shadow over all of this, which is this constant stream of corruption and scandals in the newspaper. And every 2 weeks you open the newspaper and there's another story of a scandal in Albany. And that detracts from what we're trying to do. And that detracts from who we are. Now, it's only a handful, it's the bad apples, but it winds up characterizing the whole bunch. And people say to me, well, you know, there's all that scandal, all that corruption in Albany, how can I trust you guys? We want to pass once and for all a real ethics reform package that answers the questions, because it's the same question that comes up for 50 years. It's always the same situation. And if we just propose an ethics package that has full transparency, I think it goes away. We need the strongest campaign finance disclosure rules, pension forfeiture for legislators who commit felonies, per diems that are the actual cost, so you're not making money off a per diem, use of campaign funds for personal expenses, and what I call ultimate disclosure. If you are a lawyer, which you can be, part-time legislator and a lawyer, disclose who your clients are. Because the constant question and the tension and the reason people go to jail is they had a client who was paying them as a lawyer, which was a conflict with what they're doing as a legislator. That's where everybody gets into trouble. And what the public wants to know is, tell us who your clients are, so we know that they're not influencing you as a legislator. So we know as a legislator you're representing us, and you don't have a client in the back room who is paying you to take a different position. Until we disclose the clients, people will never be happy. And when we say we don't want to disclose the clients, it makes people more suspicious. Because now they think there's a reason we don't want to disclose the clients. And that's feeding the beast. Disclose the clients once and for all. It'll build public trust. It'll also keep the legislators out of jail, because everything will have been disclosed and there'll be no conflicts. This plan will lower taxes, create more jobs, transform the education system, make New York safer and fairer, make government more trustworthy. But change is hard, and this is a lot of change. You know, we say we want change, and in the abstract, everybody wants change. But in truth, we don't really want change. You know, the couple at the breakfast table, one looks at the other and says, you know, honey, we have to make changes. Really, they mean you have to make changes. They're doing just fine, but you are a wreck. You know, we want everything to stay the same, because change is upsetting. This is a lot of change. And there are going to be a lot of forces going at this legislature and saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I'm talking about dramatic change in the education system. And the union is going to be all over your delegation, saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. We want to make changes for an independent monitor for a possible special prosecutor after the Eric Garner case. There's going to be all sorts of forces that say don't do that. Every one of these items, ethics reform, the legislators who now represent clients are going to say, I don't want to do that. I don't want to reveal my clients. They are going to be very powerful forces. You know the one force that is more powerful than the teachers' union, then the police unions, then a handful of members, then the governor of the state of New York? You. Your voice is more powerful. And I need your help, and I need you to say to your legislators, I understand this is hard, but do the right thing. I will be there for you. Stand up to the forces that want to contain the status quo, and let's make the changes, and let's move this state forward. We've done great things over the past 4 years. The Bronx is on the move. We have to keep it going, and I believe we're going to do better than we've ever done before, and the Bronx is going to be stronger than it's ever been before. You have great young leadership, and you have great potential. Let's put it all together, and let's make these next 4 years the 4 years where the Bronx takes off. Thank you very much, and God bless you.